Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 of our class. You should be getting your grades back from me early in the week from week 1, and typically you'll find that I get them back to you within 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours of the assignments closing. So I try to get them out to you quickly, so as you're doing the next week's assignment, you can use whatever feedback I give you to inform your work going forward. For week 2, we're going to be learning more about IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the different components of an individualized education program. Notice I said program, not plan, which is for children ages 3 and can go up to age 22. And IFSPs, which are individual family service plans, which is for infants and toddlers. So we'll be looking at those. And more specifically, we're going to be looking at accommodations and modifications. For you to keep in the front of your mind, a modification is when we change something about what we expect somebody to learn. And an accommodation changes the how we're presenting material to students, but they have the expectations to learn the same materials. Sometimes accommodations and modifications, there can be that little bit of a gray area, but if you have sort of that rule of thumb, I think it makes it a lot easier to identify it. And you're going to be looking at a good amount of material this week to support you in looking at that. So if you go to your learning materials, you'll see that you have a few things to read about an IFSP, about IDEA and families, more about accommodations and modifications, as I mentioned, and also something called universal instruction, sometimes referred to as universal design. There are some videos for you to watch about IEPs and accommodations and modifications, and also that idea of universal design. Great TED Talk. And then for you to explore, I'm going to ask you to find your parent center for where you live. And then I gave you a link to understood.org where you can look at some more information about accommodations and modifications. For our discussion this week, I'd like you to watch a short video, Welcome to Holland. It's a pretty old video. It's been around for quite some time, but my experience is that people do find it very powerful, even though it is old. You will see the prompts right underneath the video of what you should be putting into your initial response to the prompt. Your overall reaction, anything that surprised you, your personal experience, if you've had any, with regard to the content of the video, and at least one connection you've made with this week's readings. So this is where it's really important for you to use citations, in-text citations and references, so I can see what you're connecting to with the content. If you have any questions about that, feel free to post something in Ask Your Instructor or to send me a message, and I'd be glad to clarify. And then lastly, but not the least important, it's how you can support parents of children that have special needs to make sure you're working together. And we want to make sure that every child has positive outcomes. And then our assignment for this week, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into accommodations and modifications. So you're going to have a list of accommodations and modifications, and then you're either going to choose to do a brief paper, 2 to 3 pages, or a brief 5-minute presentation. Remember, if you do a presentation, there has to be a narration with it. It's not just turning in PowerPoint slides. It's a PowerPoint with a narration, or a Prezi with a narration, or a video of you explaining something. So first, you're going to review the list of accommodations and modifications that I've given you. Excuse me, let me turn my phone off here. You're going to review the list of accommodations and modifications, and then you're going to, then you are going to define accommodations and modifications using the information you got from this week's learning materials. You're going to explain how some accommodations or modifications can be made using the principles of universal design. And then I want you to pick at least one accommodation or modification as an example. And the example I gave you is maybe for a student who uses a wheelchair as a mobility issue. And then I want you to come up with how that could be used, that accommodation or modification can be used as universal design. And with the example I gave you, universal design would be to have a ramp to go into the school, because children that aren't in wheelchairs and don't have mobility issues can go up a ramp just like someone with a wheelchair. Whereas if there was only stairs, the student with the wheelchair wouldn't be able to get into the school. So that's a very clear example of universal design, how an accommodation that is intended for a very specific, in this case, disability, can work for all students. And so that's just one. So you can pick whichever one that you would like to do and talk about how you can make some impact with universal design. If you have any questions, again, please send me a message. I'd be happy to meet with any of you. We'll find a time that works for both of us. Or put your questions in the Ask Your Instructor discussion board if you think it's something that other people might have a question about. I'm looking forward to learning with you again this week. Take care and have a great week.